Disordered eating is a growing health concern. And with me to discuss her recent research on eating disorders is Samantha Hahn from the University of Minnesota. Samantha, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Samantha, why do so many young people, especially college students, monitor their own weight?
That's a great question. I think a lot of the reason that we see folks in their emerging adulthood and in college keeping track of their weight is because they're concerned about their weight and their eating. It's a period of time where there's an increase in social constructs where people are caring more about their weight and their shape and their appearance. And it's also a time where people are changing how they're eating and their physical activity and behaviors are changing. And so it's a time where we do see this increase in weight concern. And so we know that people engage in self-weighing for a variety of reasons, but oftentimes it's because they want to maintain their weight or they want to lose weight. And so I think this is a period of time where this is a particularly prominent idea. People want to lose weight, they want to maintain their weight, making sure they're not gaining weight. We hear a lot about things like the freshman 15. So I think people are engaging in self-weighing during that time, a lot of times because they want to maintain or lose their weight.
And if we consider causality for a minute, is it the act of self-weighing that can increase the risk of developing an eating disorder? Or is it that those who already suffer from eating disorders are more likely to self-monitor?
It's a really complex question, and I think it's really nuanced, and for different people, it's going to be different. So for some individuals, we do see that individuals who are more weight concerned are more likely to self-weigh. So it may be that individuals who are engaging in disordered eating are also engaging in self-weighing as a symptom of their disordered eating. However, that's probably not always the case. In the research looking at whether self-weighing and other forms of self-monitoring increase disordered eating suggests that it has differential effects on different people. So there might be some people who are more susceptible to the harms of self-weighing and other forms of self-monitoring. So it may be that those that are somewhat weight and shape concerned are further weight and shape concerned. Those concerns are elevated when they engage in self-weighing. And then in other forms of self-monitoring, like dietary self-monitoring and physical activity self-monitoring, there might be some forms of personality traits that make it more harmful. So it's been hypothesized that things like rumination or perfectionism, individuals who are really get really prone to meeting goals, and might be particularly problematic for those folks. But it's a question that I have dedicated my research so far, and I'm continuing to research to see if there are individuals for whom it's harmful and it really does exacerbate pre-existing, or if there are individuals for who it could go on to, who were perfectly fine and weren't weight and shape concerned at all before. And then there was something about this tracking that did make them weight or shape concerned and led to their disordered eating. And the research that's been done has suggested it's probably a little bit of both. Certainly there are folks that have reported that when they have eating disorders, they report that self-monitoring led to or contributed to the development of their disordered eating. But the research is mixed, and I think it's a good question that we don't have a good answer to.
And you have also looked at the role that technology or technology-based behaviors play. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, technology, I think, has made self-monitoring easier than ever. So traditionally, when we think of self-monitoring, self-weighing, it's been a scale in the house that you step on. You know, you might step on it weekly, you might step on it daily. But then we now have these technologies that are making self-monitoring easier than ever. So things like dietary self-monitoring, there are apps that make it super easy. You can scan a nutrition label and it'll log it for you. Traditionally, beforehand, you had to weigh and measure your food and keep a track of it on a paper log. Things like Fitbit or wearable tracker devices are now, recording your physical activity without you having to do anything. So it's making self-monitoring easier than ever. So more people have access to it, are more likely to do it. It's also being popularized on social media. So people are sharing and comparing and doing these quests with friends and things like that. So I think this technology, one, is making it easier, it's making it more accessible, and it's also making it normalized. So I would say that, with millions and millions of folks engaging in self-monitoring every month, we know that it's now almost normal, right? I know we can all think about people in our lives who do it rather than the opposite being true. It used to be just something you did every once in a while, and now I feel like it's becoming normalized with these technologies.
Eating disorders are a complex subject. Not only are there various types of disorders, but factors such as race, gender, upbringing, cultural background, the media influence, social pressures, they all could play a role. Is there, in your view, enough being done to investigate this disorder? And what do you believe is behind the worldwide increase in disordered eating in recent years?
As you said, they're really complex diseases. And I think that they are getting more attention, particularly in the midst of COVID and this acceptance that mental health is really, people are really struggling with their mental health right now. But I think that there are probably a few things that are contributing to this increase in prevalence in the last few decades. In part, I think it's the increases in social media and the increased concern in weight and shape that folks are facing, the increase in comparisons that exist on social media and things like that. I think from a statistical perspective and looking at this increased prevalence, there may be some contributing factors of changes in DSM criteria. So what constitutes a specific eating disorder changing over time. So DSM-5 came about in the mid 2000s, I think, just after 2010. So there may have been some changes in that when we look at the prevalence, but I think largely it's this increase in weight and shape concern, the increase in acknowledgement and the realization that eating disorders are affecting everybody, not just who we stereotypically think are affected by eating disorders. And I think they are increasing over time, and there's a lot of reasons for that. As you said, they're nuanced and they're complex.
You mentioned the pandemic there. Can you maybe speculate how the pandemic could have influenced the worldwide trend towards more disordered eating?
Yeah, there's been a lot of great research that's been done by folks looking at the increase in disordered eating behaviors, which were already really high before the pandemic and have increased during the pandemic. We've also seen an increase in hospitalizations in eating disorders. And I think it's not a surprise that eating disorders are characterized by isolation. And during the pandemic, folks have been isolated and things have been really hard. And we know that eating disorders increase when we have periods of high stress. And I don't think anybody's surprised that COVID has created a period of stress in people's lives. And then this increased social isolation, lack of support systems that people have because they're not able to go see people and do things the same way that they were. And then there's all this talk societally about COVID weight gain and this fear. So I don't think it's super surprising that we're seeing increased fear of weight gain as well, which certainly doesn't help. So I think it's complex and there's lots of different reasons for it, but I certainly think that the battle of improving mental health and decreasing eating disorders has only been exacerbated by COVID for many, many reasons. And I think that there's the repercussions of COVID and eating disorders is going to stay for a while.
Samantha, thanks again for sharing your time today, and all the very best of luck with your further work this year. Thank you.
Thank you.